Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Well, so after being in this deep process, I think I'm gaining strength back. So after all this cleaning, I kind of feel I'm going out again from the subconscious and the unconscious, going into the conscious. Let's go to the topic for today, which I have no clue really about what I should share from it. So the topic for today is leaves, the leaves of the tree related to the heart, which is to give and receive. So the leaves of the plant represent the heart of the tree, of the plants, because the heart of the attribute of the heart is basically to give and receive. So every heart is about that, to give and receive. And the leaves in a plant are the ones that work with that through a process that we call photosynthesis, which I ask if you all know what is this photosynthesis. I will make a very short summary of what is photosynthesis. What I am doing right now, it's really a mess. So I hope you kind of get it. So this is very like a summary. So I'm not going into details. To clarify, this here is a leaf. So just to clarify the image. So in a leaf, we have chlorophyll. I don't know in English how you say it, chlorophyll, which is this element, pigment, that is able to grab the photons, are the particles of chlorophyll. Okay, thank you. That are the particles of the light. So from the sun, the rays of the sun, we get photons, which are all these particles that in a certain wavelength, which is around 500 nanometer, the chlorophyll get that photons, and that's why we see the trees like green. That's why we see green, because of the wavelength that the chlorophyll gets the light. Chlorophyll is the one that gets the photons, because the administration of photons is the one that will give energy to the plant. We need energy. The plant needs energy, so we will grab it from the photons. In a way the plant needs energy, because the plant creates its own food. It needs energy to create its own nutrients. In a different way in which we do it, that we eat things from the outside, the plant needs to create its own food within. So what happened here? That this energy will be used to create its own food. The way in which it does it is taking the inorganic materials that are around in the environment. For example, the carbon dioxide, which means carbon dioxide is one carbon, and dioxide is D is 2, and oxide is oxygen. So part 2 of oxygen. So carbon dioxide, it takes that, and what it does through the chemical reaction of the energy of the sun is divide the oxygen with the carbon. It gets the carbon and turns it into something organic. It takes the oxygen outside and takes the only carbon. From the other side comes the water from the roots of the plant. So the water, which is H2O, so 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen, it does exactly the same with the chemical reaction through energy. The energy of the sun helps inside the leaf to separate the oxygen, take it away, you don't need that, and the plant doesn't need that, and just stays with the hydrogen. So the connection between the hydrogen and the carbon will give us the carbs, the carbohydrate. I don't know in English the name of carbs, carbohydrate. I don't know the name. So basically, they create this, which is the sugars. Okay, is the base of glucose for the plants. Carbohydrates. Thank you. Carbohydrates. So it creates this, which is the base for all food that then we eat from plants and animals and so on. So we get that sugar from this. So the plant is creating this food. As a summary, here the plants, the leaves, will take the inorganic things plus the light of the sun, and through a chemical reaction with this energy, they divide the molecules of water and carbon dioxide, expelling all the oxygen and just staying with carbon and hydrogen to create carbohydrates that creates the sugar, the glucose, which is the food for the plant. All this is the process of photosynthesis. So all the process of photosynthesis gives us this idea that all the inorganic elements, like that are things that can hurt us, like straight light of the sun and the carbon dioxide in the oxygen in the air, that can harm our structures, are processed by a chemical reaction inside the plant, creating energy that allows the plant to create food for itself and also for us. It transforms everything that usually can kill us or do any harm to us and makes it into food for us. And also the things that the plant doesn't need, that says, I need this, I give it away. So is the oxygen. So the oxygen is the one that let us breathe. So the plants are giving us basically life through food and through the oxygen that we breathe, giving it away, receiving the bad things and giving the good things for us. So we breathe the oxygen, which is what the plants doesn't need to live and need for living. But one important thing to know is that when we breathe, we bring this energy to the cells, and all the excess of energy in the cells that needs to be released from our body, from all the carbohydrates that we have consumed, all this excess of it comes into the air again from our breathing into carbon dioxide. So we breathe in the air and we breathe out the carbon dioxide, which is basic for the plant to produce its food. So the plant is basically producing the food and oxygen we need to live for living, and we receive that oxygen that they don't need and give them back through carbon dioxide, which is the basement for their food. So this is a perfect cycle of giving and receiving. So what we can take from nature here is how nature takes the things that can hurt us, that can harm us, and transform it into energy through a chemical reaction into food. and things that can allow our life for us to be alive. So this has created, through millions of years, an idea in our planet that we need to take the bad things from the environment to transform it within ourselves in order to create good things. So here is how we get to understand about the concept of today related to pain and pleasure. The photosynthesis and the way of breathing helps us to understand from a very natural and biological point of view why we commonly as humans go through these suffering processes in life repeatedly. So remember that the way in which we perceive the environment, the is through our brain, and basically the brain has been designed to receive the data from the outside through 5 senses. These 5 senses receive the impulses from the outside, and even if there are specific organs to assimilate specifically that data, in the brain, all of that get mixed in order to have a complete image of what we are feeling. So there is a coherence in the whole picture, in the whole information. Por lo tanto, hay que recordar que el sistema nervioso recauda datos del mundo externo para crear una imagen completa en el mundo interno. So remember that the nervous system receives different information from the outside in order to create one complete data in the inside for the understanding. So basically, the brain is like receiving data and administrates that data according to different levels. It's not like putting information like this is bad and this is wrong. The brain kind of interprets one data that receives according to all the rest of the data, and it kind of in one only line of measure determines if it is a high vibration or a low vibration of information. I know that you're not seeing it properly, but anyway, I don't have other thing. So for example, I have here one thing, and here I have 5 senses. So for example, I have this object here, and I am receiving information from this object through these 2 here, through these 2 senses. And I have information from the other senses through preconcepts of things that I had before. So I have a preconcept of this object that I am perceiving through these only 2. From all these preconcepts and these experiences, the brain will connect all this information as only one. So to try to get the whole picture of it, and from that, it will try to put in this measurement where I refer to this data, to this information. It's only one thing that can measure if it's a low or a high perception of what I am receiving. It's not different things. So it's the brain trying to locate this according to all the data from before that determines if we are suffering or if we are enjoying it. So this is the brain. So this is why all the information, all the data that comes through the the senses and the pre-data that already has the brain through the senses that we all know: smell, sight, hearing, touch, taste. From these 5 senses, the brain interprets all this information, determining where this data would be, so it can understand it. So the reason why the brain does this to interpret in which level it is found, because it needs to find where and what actions should it take regarding that object. If all the pulses takes me to this level, so I will find in this level the reactions that I will have according to this. If I feel pain with this object, if I feel attacked by this object, so I will know now, according to this level of measurement, if I need to run or I have to fight back or whatever. Okay, so it's because I need to know what reaction I should take according to the object. So this is another one of receiving and giving. So a basic example would be fire. You have fire here. This is fire. So through the senses, you can experience fire from 2 ways, from 2 different things. You can experience fire in a good way, like for example, fire being in how do you say, in a fireplace. So everyone is around, so you look into the fire and everyone is sharing, like a family, like a romantic moment. So something like that. So the information that comes from the fire will go to pleasure, because it's like, oh, I relate this with eating all together, with cooking, with feeling the heat of the fire, to feel warm, and so on. So so my reaction will be according to that, okay, to get closer to the fire, to feel the heat, and so on. But if this fire is burning the house, so the senses will send the image of something burning. So I will perceive the fire as something bad for me. So the reaction would be to run away from the fire. It's a simple thing. So what happened here? That this is not something mechanic. So it's something that depends on each person. So basically, for each individual, the relationship with the fire would be very different. For some people, it's painful. For some people, is something amazing. So according to its own experiences and preconcepts of the fire, a person will define how it feels. What do we have here? That humans, living being, measure the pain and the pleasure according to this only rule. And that makes that the brain interprets pain and pleasure with the same tool. So that's why some people cannot make a difference in between one or another. So for example, there are people that cannot measure or doesn't have a preconcept of the fire, or something wrong with the interpretation of pleasure. So they cannot difference one from another. So that's people that, instead of feeling the fire as something that gets you together with a family or something romantic, they find pleasure on burning the house and putting fire to things, to people, to whatever. So this makes that every person has a different way of understanding these two. So every individual has a very different scale to measure what is pleasure and what is pain. So for example, there are people that feels pleasure on hurting others. So they feel pleasure in that. So that's why they feel that it's okay. This is why humans, we created morality and ethics. So we created morality and ethics as a way to control somehow these limits between pleasure and pain. So what happened here? That what before was just an interpretation of the brain of what is pleasure and what is pain, now it becomes something forbidden. And by becoming something forbidden, it goes straight to the unconscious. It gets in the unconscious because of morality and ethics. So what is the problem here with these forbidden things? It's something that we spoke many times about morality. What is morality? Morality is something that can be only attributed by some specific space and a specific time. Which means that what for us today is something immoral, for the past maybe it wasn't, and the other way around. This is because our perception of the environment changes according to time and space. So what for us today is forbidden, for other cultures maybe it's not, and the other way around. This is why it's very difficult to judge what is really pleasure and pain to what is forbidden. So besides morality changing through time, all the things that we have been banned from, that we are not able to do, they got into the unconscious. And this unconscious is inherited through time, through every generation. So even if morality changes, in our unconscious, we still have the memory of those other things, of those things that are hidden. This is why in the unconscious, many of those pleasures and pains becomes paraphilia. I don't know, in English it's the same, I guess. Paraphilia. So what is a paraphilia? A paraphilia is like another path to take, which is, philia means the love, to love something. So the philias are controlled by a morality, but paraphilia are not controlled by morality. So they say that's another thing, like another path that you are taking, which is not through morality. It's a parallel reality. So we can also call this perverse. Perverse is another path, another way from universe. Remember, universe is the only one path, and perverse is like a path that is aside. That is a path aside, which is not the right one. So that's perverse. For sure, someone can say maybe, but kill someone is something that is not good in any place or any culture. And I would say no, because for some culture, for some moments, it was a pleasure to kill someone. It was normal, part of the morality. So we cannot judge how we see things. It's according to a time, space. For us can be perverse, of course, but for others it's not perverse. So if I myself think in something that is perverse, according to a morality, it makes me someone that cannot share with the other people in this morality. what I'm thinking, what I'm willing to do is perverse for most of the other people. So I have to hide it from the other people, which goes straight to the unconscious. So when it goes to the unconscious, it goes straight to the folder of forbidden. What brings me to have erratic behaviors. There's no one, no human on earth that doesn't have any perversion in their mind, within the unconscious. We all have those. And one of the best perversions that we people have, the pleasure of feeling a victim. So one of the biggest perversions would be this love for feeling a victim, because through that we can feel that the others will take care of me and will love me because I am feeling bad. So this makes that in our society, in our civilization, are created two different ways of pleasure. One, which is the pleasure of the masochist, which is the one loving to become a victim. And the other one, which is the sadist, which is the one that loves to create victims. This is because we are a violent species that has found the survival through violence, through fight. This is why through thousands of years, many have found a way to gain power through creating victims, and others to gain power through becoming a victim. And this has created a recurrent feeling in humans, which is the pleasure on things that makes us suffer a little bit. So I propose to you to look for that in your daily life, like how it is to, for example, in which places you find pleasure in things that makes you suffer, like watching a movie, listening into some music, with some friends, in some relationships, whatever. So it's just watching to normal things. Like, for example, what happened to me yesterday, I saw for the second time the same series that makes me suffer, like crying. And if I am willing to feel fine, why not to see something to laugh? Why I see something that makes me suffer? And I was feeling like fine with that. Or for example, when we listen into music, if I feel a little bit bad, why would I choose to listen songs that make me feel sad? That makes me feel much more this sadness. What we do with this type of things is finding pleasure in the suffering. And this is when where we remember photosynthesis. So what does the photosynthesis with us? The example of photosynthesis shows us that you can take all these bad things from the environment and turn them into something good, food, energy for our life. So what we can understand here is that suffering, pain, is a tool that the brain uses to understand pleasure. So when we feel pain, the brain is measuring where can we have to position our interpretation to transcend what we are feeling. Pain is something that helps us to understand a process we are going through. So suffering becomes not something that you have to eliminate from your life, but it is a tool. Like in music, suffering would be the low pitch of music. Like, you cannot eliminate the low frequencies in music because they are like the ones that helps to understand the music. Not eliminate the low notes just because you like the high notes. Both help to each other to make a sense. So basically, the real problem that we have here is not to feel bad or to feel fine. The real problem is that those two feelings are sent into the unconscious. We send it there because of morality. So it was so hidden that it turned into a pathology. Like, for example, pedophilia, necrophilia, this kind of mental diseases, or whatever we can call them. They are pleasures that people find because they locked their real pleasures and pains in the unconscious. If they would have been able to express their real pleasures, maybe we wouldn't have those problems. So it's all about what we have hidden in our unconscious. This is why it's so important for us to start to recognize this pleasure and these pains in our unconscious, to understand what are our emotional paraphilia. In that way, we can do like photosynthesis, taking all this negative stuff and turn them into nutrients, food. The ways in which we can do this is to transcend those sufferings and those paraphilia that we have inside is by sharing it. How? By art, painting it, writing it, talking it with someone, making it into a physical thing so you be aware and conscious about it, taking it out so it's not just within you. So you can start to transcend and take the suffering as a tool for your own evolution. So this is why when people say, for sure, there is a lot of people saying we do this to end the suffering in the planet, to end with the pain in this humanity, and it's impossible. This is impossible to eliminate because suffering and pain are not a real thing outside. They are a way of measurement, of perception inside your brain. The only thing that we have to do is to know how to balance the levels of the music, the song, but we cannot eliminate the notes. So let's do like the trees, and through our unconscious, let's make photosynthesis. Vibration today is Z. The statement today is, I am the heart's vibration.